Alrighty, students, I'm going to have you turn in your Unit 2 book to page 40, and we are going to continue our work with finding the constant of a table, using that constant to finish the open spots in a table, and then eventually come down and write some equations, which you'll see down as we move down the paper. So here we go. Now, you remember that when we move across, we're multiplying. And since this one seems pretty easy, I'm going to go 1 times something gets me 100. So that is 100, right? 0.94 times that constant, which is 100, is going to be 94. And if you're uncomfortable and you haven't done work with decimals, you're more than welcome to go ahead and grab a calculator and just check your work. But we know for the most part, anytime you are multiplying by 100, you're moving that decimal over twice. Okay, so again, 100, so it would be 167, 100, so it'd be 5,724. That decimal over. And then now we're introduced to this x. So what this is saying is if we were to continue on this table, what would be our routine? Well, we know our routine the entire way was taking it times 100. So we would say it's x times 100, but or you could say 100 times x. But as you move into algebra, people get really picky on how you're supposed to write things. And whenever you have like an unknown and a number, you are to write the number first and then the unknown, and you get rid of the dot. So this is really the official way of writing it right here. Okay, so we're just going to get into practice of that. Alrighty, so now let's come on over here. And it's still kind of our same number up at the top, but what am I going to do with 100 to get it to be 1? And we had learned that it's kind of like taking the 1 and dividing it by 100, right? And that's what that looks like in fraction form. So that's what I'm going to do the whole way across, right? Okay, so I'm going to go, now let's just see what 1 divided by 100 looks like on my calculator. So 1 divided by 100 on my calculator, great, is 0.01. So it's a non-repeating number. So I could have just as easily right here put this in here. Could have just as easily done that, right? 0.01, 0.01, because it's a non-repeating. It terminates. So let's go. Let's go 0.01 times 100. And I get 1. Great, we already knew that. And then I've got 250 times 0.01, and I get 2.5. I get 78.2 times 0.01, and I get 0.782. Okay, I have 123.9, this number right here, times 0.01, get 1.239, and now I'm back down to this kind of unknown. What that means is if I continued this table on, and I still had the same constant, what would be like the formula I could use? And so it's going to be 0.01 y, or you could say 1/100th y. And your classroom teacher might have talked with you about that when you get to leave it in fraction form, leave it in fraction form. So out of these two options, this is the one we like the most right now. So we're going to just leave it there. Okay, so now we filled out our tables, and we're going to work a little bit down farther on our assignment. So great, we're done with that. Okay, here we go. For each table, find the constant. Well, we did that. So the COP of this table is, let me move it down just a little bit more, is 100, right? You got that. It's this number right here. Great. Okay. The COP of this table is 1 over 100. Oh, it's not very pretty. Or you could say that it is 0.01. Okay. Again, we're liking this one a little bit more right now. Okay. All right, so now we come down here is what is the relationship between these two constants? So what's the relationship between these two constants? Well, if you look at it, you got 1 and you have 1 over 100. Do you remember what that was? We could say that they are reciprocals of each other. Oh, I don't even know how to spell that word. There we go. They're reciprocals of each other. They're maybe the opposites of each other. Right, we could think of it that way. Okay, for each table, write an equation for the proportional relationship. So these two have a relationship with each other. Let x represent the length in meters. So now I'm going to come back up to my table here, and I'm going to put that as x, right? So it says represent x for the length of the meters. So that's x. And over here, length in meters, that's x here. And then I'm going to just pick a different color just so that we have it here. And y represents for the centimeters, right? So I'm just kind of following what it said, and I'm going to make that y, and I'm going to make that y. All right, so now let's go to this table right here. I'm going to come back down to the bottom here. Okay. Oops, sorry. So we know that we filled out the second table, right? The second table right here, we did y equals, what was my constant? What was my multiplier? 100. And what did we multiply? It was x. So this equation really relates back to what you just found here. Now let's go to the next one over here. So for this one, we were now looking, how did we get this? Well, this right here is the x. So when I come back down here, I'm going to go x equals what? Well, it equaled what I did with that first column, which was my constant, which is 1 over 100 y. Okay. We did this before, so you kind of have seen this before. Now all this is kind of the reciprocal of it or the undoing of it, right? These two things say the exact same thing. They're just written with one having y first and the other one having x first. Now, what I'd like you to do is I want you to go ahead and flip to the summary. Your summary starts on page 43. So on page 43. I'm going to have you read that when we're not live together here on the camera, or when you're not listening to the recording. Excuse me here so I can move it here. The part that I want you to pay special attention to is this last little section down here. Okay. When two quantities, x and y, are in a proportional relationship, we can write this equation. Yes, and you're really familiar with that. That was kind of those tables that we had when you had a table like this, and we had x here, and you had y. And there's our constant. Remember, that is the same thing as COP, right? What is that? Multiplier. And then we also know that we can undo this by having the x here, and that it is 1k to y. So when two quantities, x and y, are in a proportional relationship, we can write the equation this way. Yep, we got that. And say y is proportional to x. In this case, the number k is the corresponding constant of proportionality. So this is kind of a mouthful, but this right here is the English sentence, right? That's the English sentence. This is the math sentence for that. These two things are synonym. We can also write the equation x equals 1 over k y. right, or like the reciprocal, and say x is proportional to y. In this case, the number 1k is the corresponding constant of proportionality. Again, this right here and all of this is the English sentence, right? It's the words to that math sentence. And it says each one can be used depending on the information we have in the quantities we are trying to figure out. So I just want to flip back here. So in this problem right here, remember we had mainly our x's and we needed to find the y's. But in this problem, it was rearranged differently, right? Our y's were here and we were trying to find the x's. So based on what is up here in the order makes a difference then for the equation you're going to have down at the bottom. And I know this is new learning and maybe a little bit uncomfortable here, but we're going to get better at it. Okay, so now what you're going to do for yourself for practice is I'm going to have you turn to page 44. So this is page 44, and you are going to do problems 1 and problem 2. Okay, again, on page 44, you're going to do problems 1 and problems 2. And then don't forget to spend some time just on the previous page, on page 43. Okay. Bring your book to class tomorrow if you have any questions, and we can sure help.